take it away.
Okay, thank you all. I don't have a whole lot presented, but just want to say welcome. This is our new virtual meeting, and we'll be touring Salish. I want to let Brian Carter and the rest of the team introduce that when we get there. But for now, just so happy to be here and that everyone is here today, albeit distanced. And what else do we have going on? There's, the board is still meeting, and we have a lot of interesting activities and initiatives and committees going. And so I think what we'll probably do is let's get started on the tour first, and then perhaps Ben will get on eventually and he can give us our the more polished welcome. I think the only thing I was going to jump in and say is that the TAC has also been meeting, the Technical Advisory Committee, and there are subcommittees within that. And I know Drew and I were going to say a little piece, but I think I'll hold that for another meeting. Just A4LE folks, just know that the TAC is making some changes to the study and survey and also to the deform process. It's minor in the grand scheme of things, but I think you'll like it better. But we just have to let the process run its course. So I think there'll be more updates as we go. So for now, I'm gonna hop off and give it back to Brian.
Okay, thank you, Tane, and thank you for channeling your inner Ben. I hope he's okay. He's actually emailing, I think, Donna right now, but maybe he's having technical problems. So we'll just roll through the tour and maybe get to your business afterwards. So thank you everyone for being here to see Salish Coast Elementary School in Port Townsend. It's an absolute pleasure to get to share the new Salish Coast Elementary School with you because it was a really special project. It's the kind of project that really tried to shoot the moon in a lot of ways. It had everything. It really had it all, from a deeply engaged community with aspirational expectations ranging from whole food shared farming to community resource expectations to walkable, bikeable neighborhoods to environmental responsibility topics. It had a demanding city jurisdiction eager to further several urban planning goals as a part of the project. It had an already successful elementary school community that was working in a woefully tired facility. And it had inspiring and visionary educational leadership at both the district and the school level, looking for a solution that would help them facilitate a commitment to place-based learning. For context, I want to share before we get going, maybe a few of the challenges as well, because there were several challenges on this project. First and foremost, what else is new? There wasn't enough money to do everything. As a small district, the school project was essentially the entire program, which means there was no hidden bucket to augment the project when escalation started running amok. District leadership at the most senior level changed. Actually, 3 different superintendents across the course of this project. Fortunately, the changing of the guards aligned pretty well with the design, construction, and move-in phases, and all were great superintendents and great leadership, so it wasn't too big a problem, but still change is change. And finally, we were under construction in a remote location at the high point of the escalation crisis when just getting subcontractor interest was challenging, let alone good pricing. So I'm really proud of the entire team and what you all accomplished in getting this really special project done. In fact, I want to share a little news with the team and with everyone tonight. This is hot off the presses and kind of exciting, I think, for all of you, and exciting for architects in general, especially. Your Salish Coast Elementary School has just been recognized by the AIA's National Committee for Architecture and Education with an award of merit. So congratulations to all of you, and you're going to see that widely published, I think, starting tomorrow. That's really good news. So let me introduce the team, then let's get the tour going. First and foremost, a little bit of credit to all the folks in the community who were a part of this project. and there were many, but most especially, I want to thank Lisa Condren, who's actually here with us today. I thought, Lisa, you were going to join us a little late, but I'm glad you're here for the whole thing. She's our principal and has been a part of this project since the early planning, and is a real part of the leadership in putting the solutions that you're going to see together. Dr. Engels was our visionary superintendent during the planning process, and he was a really inspirational part of this project, I think, for all of us. I remember of his many quotes, the one that stood out with us the most was, "My version of No Child Left Behind is no student left indoors." That formed the foundation for what we got to design towards, a really special time. And also I want to thank Dr. Pohl, who replaced Dr. Engels on his retirement. And Dr. Pohl was in his first superintendent role with Port Townsend when he joined us as construction began. And can you imagine being a new superintendent in a smaller school district with the largest construction project in the history of the district suddenly being your responsibility? So congratulations for accomplishing that. Dr. Pohl has since moved and is now the new superintendent at Puyallup School District. So some of you have probably met him. The team, I want to credit the team at Integris, specifically David Van Galen, my design partner, in a design leadership role. Loretta Sachs will be leading our tour today, who has been really the heart and soul of the project from our side from day one. Teresa Daniel and Morgan Lisi are structural engineers, and Julie Taylor on specs, and just a host of other people here in the Integris family who had a part of this project, including a couple of folks that I want to give a shout out to anyways, and I'm assuming you're on the call here. These are folks who are no longer with us, but will always be a part of the Integris family, and they were absolutely critical role players in this project, and that's Shannon Payton and Shelley Engels. The engineering team included LPD Engineering, Cascade Design Collaborative for landscape, metrics engineers, and Travis Fitzmaurice as the major mechanical electrical engineers. Lori Farr, Cass Kincaid, Melinda Heron, and April Balenke, I got it right, huh, April, are here to speak about the project today, especially during Q&A. We're also fortunate to have a great GCCM on board, and James Christensen from Absher is here to talk to us about the delivery model. My last final thank you, I want to give a shout out to Kirk Robinson. As an architect, I really appreciate when I have an opportunity to work with an owner rep who's able to juggle all the budget and schedule and management needs of his client without losing that honest empathy for what I call the higher value aspirations of a project. And I know that many of us on this call were friends with Kirk and attended his memorial last year that was held at the National Nordic Museum in Ballard. That was a project he managed, and a great example of, I think, what I'm talking about. And I hope that with this tour, you see a little bit of Kirk's passion and honesty in the project. Now onto the tour. Salish Coast will be featured in the virtual tours for Learningscapes in 2 weeks. And honestly, that 30-minute video was due to Donna yesterday. So we couldn't do two things at once. So we're gonna basically use that video for this tour today. And we're just going to roll through the video with the team providing live narration over it. Then we'll go back and talk about project systems and maybe have time for Q&A. We have diagrams and 360 imaging of a lot of the spaces that we can use for discussion if you all have specific questions or comments. So please use the chat window for those later. But we're not going to try to pause the video and go back and forth, because I think that'll just be a technology nightmare. With that, Loretta, if you're ready to go ahead and roll the video while I talk for a minute about the town. Good?
Yep.
And I suggest you all make the video large. And a few nuts and bolts facts while we start here. Salish Coast Elementary School is the district's only elementary school designed to accommodate up to 600 pre-K through 5th grade students. It sits on the same 11.5-acre site as the building it replaces. It was constructed while the former school remained occupied. Total construction cost, inclusive of substantial site and off-site requirements from the city, was about $30 million. Port Townsend is a special place, highly educated, eco-sensitive, and in many ways ruggedly pioneering in their commitment to their community. Its natural setting really is unsurpassed, with all the richness and biodiversity offered in that special place where land and water converge. Sitting on the gateway to the southern parts of the Salish Sea, the town has a distinct sense of self, identifying both with their maritime roots and seeking also to deepen their understanding and connection to their indigenous heritage. Remote and relatively isolated, Port Townsend is accessible either by ferry service or by highway, dependent on the Hood Canal Bridge. To feel the community's driven quest for their sense of self is to understand the school district's commitment to place-based learning and their aspirations for deeply engaging community connections. As you can see from the video shot from an incoming ferry, Port Townsend is a collection of mostly smaller scale wood and brick buildings set along a hillside at water's edge, none particularly majestic individually, yet taken as a whole, they build an architectural vernacular that forms a backdrop to the city's maritime legacy. So the new Salish School responds to this wonderful community as a deceptively simple, predominantly single-story shed. It's a solution that engages its surroundings, provides a direct expression of the value of its community. Loretta's going to walk us to the building now.
Great, thank you, Brian. We wanted to start this tour with a little bit about the pre-bond process. Port Townsend had failed a bond previously in 2008, and it was important for them to hire an architect on early during pre-bond in order to create a vision that represented all of the goals, hopes, and dreams of their community. And their community steering committee worked actually for 2 years before hiring us, and they were a blend of people in the maritime industry, along with the school district. They had members from solar, PV businesses, representatives from bikeable, walkable communities, healthcare representatives, and even chefs. And what's really special about Salish Coast and Port Townsend School District is their place-based Discovery Maritime learning program. And it's unique to Port Townsend, or at least they are probably one of a few where they've employed their place-based learning across all grade levels, from the elementary school to their middle school and to their high school. And so what you're seeing here in this image is just a representation of how many local partners Dr. Engel, who was superintendent at the time, had built those partnerships with. And everybody that the district was working with had a vested interest in this project, including the teachers who, as you can see, we went through multiple workshops to make sure that as they were going out for bond and then successfully passed their vote, that the project was really a reflection of their unique community. Just a couple more images from the pre-bond. And then we're going to take you to see the existing site. So this is the existing school before construction began. The original school was named Grant Street Elementary School, named for the street along the right side, the east side of the school. And the size of the school actually limited the grades that they could serve. So Grant Street Elementary served grades preschool through 3rd grade. But in order to even serve those grades, they had portables to the north and actually a house that they had bought across the street. And it was important to the committee to embrace their place-based outdoor learning and create a scheme that was centered around an outdoor learning courtyard. But not only that, but to really maximize the entire site so that it's all for use by the community and in support of their educational program. And one of the unique features you're going to see about the project is the lack of parking lots on the site. Also important were their sustainability goals. And as the project developed, how it was sited on the existing site had a lot to do with maximizing space for future PVs from community solar. And so to orient you on the site plan, if you look at Discovery Road along the top, please take note when a video starts that along the length of Discovery, there's not only a pullout for buses instead of a bus turnaround on the site, but also a bike path. That's part of the system the city is working on for their bikeable, walkable communities. As Brian said, it's primarily a one-story school. The site has a 14-foot slope that the new school navigates. And on the upper part of the slope in blue are the classroom clusters that are arranged around the outdoor learning courtyard. And then to the east, fronting Grant Street, are their shared community spaces like their dining commons and a garden educational classroom that's a multifunctional space that could serve as an art classroom or a separate space during lunch, and then also a gym. So this is an overview of the tour we're going to take you on today. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see number 1. We're going to take you into the building, into admin, out into the outdoor learning courtyard, back to the mudroom on the west side of the site, then into a classroom cluster to talk about their flexible learning environments that supports project-based, place-based learning, and then out into their public areas like the library, the commons, and the gym, and also into the student learning garden that fronts the street at the intersection of their main 2 roads. So this is Discovery. See the bike path on the right, and if you see that pull out on the right, that's where the buses align. And as we're turning onto Grant Street, we'll see the approach. Grant Street was an existing one-way street with street side parking, and through partnership with the city, we were able to keep the majority of the parking along the street and not on the site. There was also an additional small parking lot on the residential lot across the street. When students approach the school, they'll be walking alongside either bioswales or the school garden or their play area. And just to note, the blue and yellow squares that you see are part of how they are working with COVID. Salish Coast is open. They are in hybrid model since the beginning of the school year, with half the students attending school on Mondays and Tuesdays, the other half on Thursdays and Fridays. And so we've just entered the main reception area for the school. It's located so that they have visual supervision for access into the school, both from Discovery and from walking up the stairs or going up the ramp off from Grant Street. And next to the entrance vestibule that you enter off from the outdoor learning courtyard is a space that was special to the district, really close to Dr. Engel's heart, that they refer to as their community resource, family resource area. And there are, many students and families in need in the Port Townsend area. And the district, is connected with all of them. And they want to make sure that, if you're a parent bringing your child to school for the first time, it can feel intimidating. They wanted a warm living room-like area that could welcome them. And then also help make available to families access to any resources that they might need. And so that's what the recess that you see off to the right is built there to support. Adjacent to it is the conference room for the school, which then could also serve mobile dentist or other uses in support of the family needs. So next on our tour, we're going to go out of admin and we're going to walk you through the outdoor learning courtyard area. We'll take you to the mudroom at the end of the courtyard, And then we're going to enter into the classroom clusters.
So this was a pretty great project for us to work on. And as we fade out, I get to be the one going out the door. So the high value placed on the outdoor courtyard was really important to the teachers, to the school and the community. And the circulation, we talked a lot about how circulation would work through both the internal hallways and then the central courtyard. And there was a value placed on having kids have a couple options and be able to head them out and queue them up along the central courtyard. So we paid attention to some of the screening that could happen so we're not distracting people. And the kids are really great walking down the sidewalks. Every time I was out there, it was really fun to watch them walk down the pathways because they would just put their hands out gently and go by the grasses. I never saw anybody ripping them out. It was just this very gentle kind of thing. And I even remember standing there with the contractor. It was just a beautiful thing. Anyway, they can continue on out through the mudroom. There's the exterior area, this great forest back out there. They use that for sit spot learning moments. And you can see what a great stand of trees that is. And this mudroom space is also a covered space. And Loretta will talk about that later. And now we're going to go back inside. So I'm handing it back to Loretta.
So, so right after the bond passed and we were diving in deeper into the design of the school, Dr. Engel actually called us all together, and he recognized from previous projects he had been a part of at other school districts the importance of teacher participation and teacher buy-in when designing and building a brand new school. And he was also recognizing the importance of flexibility. An interesting time when we were designing Salish Coast is it's when all districts were grappling with how do we address the reduced classroom sizes. And one of the ways that we approached it here at Salish is we looked at, when you're keeping the overall student population the same size, but you're adding additional staff, is your building getting bigger, or are the additional staff able to support the students in similarly sized spaces? And so that led to an exploration of really looking at highly flexible learning blocks and how the teachers work together. Before this project, they were already engaged in what they refer to as their workshop model, where students would get together for the lesson and then break out to work into the small groups. And the school was already exploring ideas about collaborative teaching and learning and what's often referred to as team teaching. So Dr. Engels invited us to actually attend professional development sessions, a couple of them, with all of their teachers in grades kindergarten through 5th grade. And the very first meeting, we weren't even the presenters, we were just there to be the listeners and hear about how they want to move their educational program forward to help them envision these highly flexible spaces. And so with looking at these larger learning blocks that could be broken down, it's important to create those subzones. So there was this exploration of different shapes, often referred to as our T shapes and our L shapes. And then within that bigger block created by this combination of shapes, how many different size groupings of teachers and students could a learning area serve? So the basic building block was about 3,600 square feet, which could support 6 teachers, 17 students each, 4 students with 25. And through the use of different lengths of operable walls located at different places throughout the learning block, we're able to create a variety of scale of learning environments, each that can have their own subzones within them as multiple teachers worked with the students, and grouped and regrouped them in the learning environment, but always at the same time, making sure that the building was designed with the placement of windows, that if down the road they decided they needed to go to more traditional learning environments, separate like 900 square foot classrooms, they had the ability to do that as well. So what you're seeing now is a couple of those learning environments open to each other. It was important to have an integration of a swing door into the operable walls so that even when teachers have the operable walls closed, there's easy connection for collaboration between the learning environments. And so next, where we want to take you is we want to talk again about that importance of the outdoor learning environment and outdoor place-based learning to Salish Coast and Port Townsend School District. And as the design was being developed, making sure that wherever students and staff are in the building, that they're always having physical or visual connections from inside the building to the outside, and in particular to the outdoor learning courtyard. So here we're exiting a classroom environment and going out into the courtyard area where Cass is going to tell you about the learning settings here.
So those outdoor classrooms, again, are another one of the subspaces and allow spill out and project-based learning. The wall there can also be used in the future as a teaching wall outside. So pin up and such can be done. Chairs, tables, rooms for that. It's not huge, but it has great visibility. And again, it's that connection to the outdoors, the outside, and great natural light. The light spilling into these hallways on the internal spaces is really wonderful. And the visibility from the hallways, the insides to these outdoor spaces allow teachers to let kids go out there and have supervision. So the courtyard is fenced at both ends so they can let kids go out with a sense of security around that. So again, really wonderful light, really simple plant palette, and lots of great access.
It's been an important space, during COVID, and you may have noticed when the drone footage was going through the courtyard area, those white tents. There's 3 or 4 of them to create additional covered outdoor learning area for teachers and students to use during COVID. So now we want to take you, for a walk down the hall, focus on those connections from classrooms to the outdoor environments. And so having lots of glazing between classrooms and hallways and then to the outside was really important. They're also often used as display areas. When we were visiting the school to take the video footage, we were really delighted, just to talk about that image you just saw, to see that in the primary classroom wing where grades, the first graders and the second graders are, that the district is using their boys and girls toilet rooms as gender neutral toilet rooms. And that was important during the design. As part of that strategy, there are not any urinals in the building, so they can be used by any gender. So we just took a walk down the hallway and we're entering into the school library. Again, this is on the east side of the building, fronting Grant Street, which is the primary face and entrance for the school. And the library functions as a bridge between its other 2 primary public areas, the gym and the dining commons, with views both into the outdoor learning courtyard and then also out to Grant Street with public community connections and into the environment beyond. The library was a really special program area for Port Townsend, like it is for every school district. They have a partnership with the City of Port Townsend Library, and its location near the street is to help it function as a satellite city library location outside of school hours. So now we're going to leave the library and go down into the dining commons. From the dining commons, we're going to go into what is referred to as the Eagle Studio, their flexible learning environment that can support their garden program or after-school community programs or art. And then we're going to take you out into the garden area. So the dining commons is a large 2-floor volume space with lots of connection to the student garden along Grant Street. It gave them a designated dining area where their existing school in Grant Street didn't even have a cafeteria space. You know, it had a gym, you know, designed to be the cafetorium for the school, but they quickly outgrew and needed that PE space for programming. So having a designated PE space separate from a designated dining space was an important part of this project. Another special part of Salish Coast is their garden to school lunch program, or farm to school. When we entered the project, they had already established partnerships with local farmers and already had a school garden planted in the residential lot that they owned across the street. And in addition to that, they had gardens and orchards at their other locations. There's orchard for picking apples at Blue Heron Middle School. We would go to meetings and there'd be a bushel of apples from their orchard. And then they also have a garden located at their high school. When we designed Salish Coast, because it was going to serve their largest amount of students in the district, since it is now a K through 5 for 600 students, they wanted to move the central kitchen to Grant Street. And so the gardens that you see out in the front are important, not just for their learning programs, but there's also adjacent to it an area for a very large production garden that's going to serve their meal program. And Lori's going to take you out to the garden area.
So as Loretta kind of indicated, one of our biggest celebrations on this project was when you're entering into the school, it's not through parking lots, although you kind of see off to the left there was a access for service area and for access to the gardens. But really, when you're entering the school, we're walking through this beautiful garden, through the bioretention areas, across the ball fields or across the play areas. This was great that we had no parking on site. The majority of the parking is in the right of way, with the drop off and pickup on Grand Street. And as Loretta indicated, the bus drop off combined with the Jefferson County Community Transit drop off and pickup as well on Discovery. So it was a huge win. And we also collaborated with the adjacent community for parking across the street for overflow.
Just real quickly, what you're going to see next in the tour is we're going to leave the garden, go along the front of the school, dip into the gymnasium just real briefly to see that program area, and then take you out to the adjacent play areas that extend along the whole southern edge of the school and also incorporate hillside play.
So as we're walking out of the garden, have you seen this many bike racks at a school? It's incredible. This is a very walkable and bikeable community right there. Adjacent to this, this area is the bioretention infiltration areas that are mitigating the majority of the stormwater on site with an these are the bioretention areas, and in front of them is a infiltration vault that we have infiltrated all of the runoff from the school through. It was so that was a great thing. Definitely a challenge for making that work.
And so now we've gone inside of the gymnasium area, which adjacent to it is their music classroom and stage. There's a visual connection to the gym from the upper level, as we refer to it, since it's a one-story school in the upper level, so that students, as they're traveling to the library, can also have this visual connection to activity in the gym. And again, another one of those important shared use community spaces for the district, and is part of its placing on the site, along with its adjacency to the playground areas outside. One of the things just to talk about the play a little bit, and Cass is going to take us out there. Well, I'll let you take it over right now, Cass.
So the site plan, from a bird's eye view, you can see all the community resources are on that one side, and the big production garden is at the corner. So the big entry to the site is wrapped around these community assets. The production garden is still a bit of a blank slate, but it is in process and will be soon turned. I understand seeding will happen next spring. So it's a big gesture to the community and a lot of support from lots of volunteers that have made both the production garden and the learning garden a really special place. So we've got all the fields and all the asphalt play areas right out in front in the big flat area. And then up on the upper side of the site is more of spillover play area, and the fire lane wraps around that backside. But again, the parking is along Grant Street. That's where drop off happens. And then you can see in the distance where the buses are. The city let us put the buses up on that. Doesn't happen very often on a rural site, but we're on the Discovery Road arterial and have a bus pull out, a significant connection there for the kids coming into the school. And then parents are dropping off on Grant Street. And it's, not many projects that we make the civil engineer talk about the gardens, but that's how unique this project was. I think the entry to this whole school is pretty wonderful and green and welcoming, and the amount of asphalt that we put in was pretty limited, and I was actually fighting for more asphalt. But the play area was really fun to lay out with the teachers. We had a great process with that. Maximized every square inch that we could, used the slope and the slide and the hill as a play area, and the fire lane is wrapped around the outer edge and functions really more as a path and part of the space rather than a big utilitarian kind of thing. So that's the very front of the school. It's a really great space and a wonderful community asset.
So this wraps up our video for the virtual tour. But what we would like to do is share some nuggets of information from other members of the team. And Brian, I'll toss it over to you to talk about more about the construction and with APSHA.
Thanks. Yeah, just a few minutes, because we know that a lot of our audience here cares a lot about okay, how was it delivered and how we go. This was a really interesting kind of twist at the time that this is a district that hasn't done a lot of major construction, and certainly the leadership at the time hadn't. And trying to get I'm looking at a funny video while you're talking, and yet they were savvy enough to know what they didn't know, and to know that they needed to go find some really good advice. And so we built a GCCM model on this, knowing that escalation issues and other challenges had already arisen, knowing that they were remote, and we're going to have to deal with that. And so we very quickly found partners in Kirk and the Robinson Company, and then partners with APSHA, and that proved to be very, very successful, I think, because my favorite superintendent quote of all time is Dr. Engels saying his version of "No child left behind is no student left indoors." My second favorite superintendent quote of all time was another superintendent who told his school board that we have enough money to do absolutely anything. We just don't have enough money to do everything. So it's time to do the hard work of prioritizing. And that was a big part of this project. And I think what you see that they got through the GCCM process and through prioritizing was things that they can't get later. And what we didn't get on the project are things that still can be contributed to the project later. James, do you want to talk a little bit about the delivery model itself?
Yeah, thank you. As Brian said, I think earlier on in GCCM project, one of the big successes of the project was just the collective teamwork of the project stakeholders throughout, identifying risks and aligning our respective goals. So I just wanted to start by saying thank you to the team across the board. To that end, one of the initial risks we identified was the geographic logistics of working in Port Townsend, accessible by bridge, ferry, or driving around. And so we had to get out ahead of that. And additionally, it was in a busy market. To that, we focused on out of the gate early on generating subcontractor and supplier interest. And we especially focused on close proximity to the Port Townsend area. Likewise, looking at collectively working on identifying local labor early on, and specifying products that were manufactured and available in close vicinity to the community, just to support their community. That was something that we collectively wanted to do as a team early on. And I think it set us up for success considering how busy the market was. Speaking of goals, Loretta mentioned early on, sustainability was a big key to this project. And it was passed on from the district and really the local community. We want sustainable design, and it needed to be really energy efficient. And with that, Integris and Aperture endeavored to really test the theory and challenge ourselves to come up with a cost-effective way of building the structure with wood. So in order to do that, we worked hand in hand with Integris' structural engineering team from start to finish, refining detail after detail, which ultimately resulted in a structure composed of engineered wood, dimensional lumber, and a few strategically placed steel members. Of interest in this area, as you can see here, the high bay areas were framed with 36-inch LVLs, and a majority of the ceiling structure throughout the entire building was exposed to structure. So we had to take a lot of time and care going through the construction to the quality control of making sure that those, especially in the roof structure, stayed clean and would be taken care of when we got the building closed, and would keep that aesthetic. I will put a quick caveat that with today's lumber pricing and plywood pricing, just in general wood, the structure probably would not pencil like it did then, but it certainly does now, or it certainly did then, and presumably will in the future, while maximizing the sustainability of the overall construction. Again, along the lines of sustainability, one of the other things we needed to dive into was a cost-effective and sustainable, efficient MEP system. With that, I'll hand it off to Melinda to take us through the mechanical system.
Thanks, James. Yeah, so to reiterate that since the community was very interested in a sustainable design, the net zero discussions for the project began at the very start. Brian and James discussed the budget challenges, so we worked in coordination with Integris and Aperture, keeping with the project goals and budget concerns in mind. We collaborated with the district, Port Townsend School District, to come up with a mechanical design that would work best for them. The project was designed prior to the 2015 Washington State Energy Code dedicated outside air system, or DOAS requirement. I know a lot of you are familiar and used to hearing that term now, but it was implemented on this project prior to the code adoption for this energy improvement measure. The building's heated by convectors, and comfort cooling is provided by ceiling fans. We provided displacement ventilation for from high efficiency heat recovery units, improving the indoor air quality and reducing energy expense. So this is an added benefit now that they're occupying the site during the COVID-19 pandemic. We wanted to utilize heat pump technologies as the main heating source, but the budget didn't support that. So we did provide the infrastructure required so the district could add this component at a later date. So we saved a space in the utility yard for that heat pump. We designed a spot for the pump in the boiler room. We even installed the underground piping between the two so that the district could just purchase the equipment and connect everything up at a future point in time. And the district has not forgotten about this heat pump. They're currently working to get it added to the site. And once that heat pump is added, then the project will meet our net zero ready status and goals. And the roof could be populated with with the PV system to meet that end goal. So I'll now pass to April to talk about the electrical sustainability features and lighting design.
Thanks, Melinda. For lighting design, we wanted to bring some attention to the elements of wood construction. So we used pendants with some up and down lighting in the corridors to provide illumination on the floor and to accent the high wood ceilings. The uplight brought out the warmth of the wood beams, and it creates a more welcoming atmosphere in the space. The same concept was applied to the tall exterior canopy outside the commons, where fixtures with asymmetric distribution were used to highlight the expansive wooden canopy and really help create an inviting entry into the commons. We also wanted to incorporate some salvaged decorative fixtures from the original Grand Street Elementary. And so we worked with a local artist to repurpose the existing opal glass shades with long stem mounts and LED lamping, and we mounted these over the stairs in the commons. Sustainability in lighting design for Grand Street was achieved, or for Salish Coast, was achieved with the use of high efficacy LED fixtures coupled with daylight responsive controls and occupancy sensors to maximize energy savings. And with these automatic controls in place, fixture life is dramatically increased by 50 to 80%. The lights can potentially outlive our building.
Thanks, April. And with that, we'd like to open it up to Q&A. Just a reminder, if you have any questions that you would like to ask Lisa, the school principal, or any of the design or construction team members, please place your questions in the chat and we'd be happy to answer them. After that, Benjamin would like to go through some housekeeping. Looks like we might not have very many questions if you want to take it over, Ben.
Sure, thank you. I want to thank the whole Integris team and all the work that you put into this tour. We really appreciate it. The school looks fantastic. Can you stop sharing real quick so that I can share a few slides really just for some quick housekeeping? I want to apologize that I was a little late. I had it at 4:30 for the tour in my calendar, and I thought I'd get here at 4:10 and be doing fine, and that didn't work out so well. So we just want to go over today's tour was AIA accredited. So I'm going to just flip through some of these really quickly. I always hate it when the AIA slides get read. So I'll probably go a little faster than you can read everything, but it's there. And if you need it, I'll email it to you. I want to thank all of our 2020-21 sponsors again, valedictorians, salutatorians, magna cum laude, Dean's List, honor roll, and our contributors. All of the things that we do each year are really supported by our sponsors. We want to just appreciate them again. The board is up to a few things. One of the things is that we are looking at updating our bylaws. A lot of our members should have seen the bylaw update come through in their email. It's something that's relatively easy to ignore, so I just wanted to bring it up really quickly so that if you do have comments for Donna regarding the changes that we're proposing, you would get those into her by the 26th. Long and the short of it is we're going to change the secretary and treasurer terms from 1-year terms in the executive track to 2-year standalone terms. That is going to align us with other chapters and national more closely. We're going to remove the secretary and the treasurer from the presidential track. And then we're going to change some language so that members can be nominated for president-elect only after they've been a member of the Washington chapter for 2 years. and have served on the board for a minimum of 1. That could be current or past. So if you have served on the board for 1 year and then you let some time lapse, you could then be nominated for president-elect role. You can see more information about that on the website, read through all of the actual language rather than my summation, and contact Donna with any concerns you might have by the 26th. We appreciate everybody doing that. We have a lot of opportunities to serve. A lot of these committees are still being crafted, so I've gotten a few people who have asked about being on committees. I haven't forgotten you. We're still getting them set up. You can go onto our website and take a look at the committees that are open. Give me an email if you're interested in joining any of them. And we should be getting a lot of these rolling in the next couple of months. So the website, and then home, regions and chapters, Pacific Northwest, and then Washington chapter. And then we're right off to the sidebar. All those opportunities to help out. And that is all the housekeeping that I have. Again, I want to thank the presenters today. I want to thank the current board for all the work that they've been doing in this virtual world. It's been a whole different ballgame to try and figure out tours and presentations and get everybody corralled when we can't get together. So thank you, everybody. I see that there are a couple of more comments in the chat. I just want to roll through those and make sure that we're not going to miss any questions. It looks like Ed Peters is asking how Port Townsend handles landscape maintenance and if they allow community maintenance. That might be a good one for you, Cass.
Well, actually, they have an amazing volunteer bunch, and a good share of the plants were grown by volunteers. They got plants from the some of the native plant groups, and so we had a neighbor who was tending all these plants, and then a bunch of volunteers planted a whole bunch. I would say 50% of the original planting was done by, that we showed on permit drawings, was done by volunteers, and it's still ongoing. So due to some of the budget constraints, that was a really great solution, actually, and it's involved a lot of community members, so unique.
All right, I don't see any more questions. This will be recorded and posted to the website. So if you are interested, it's usually on the homepage of the website for a week or two, and then it slides over into the archive portion. So you can go back and watch any of the previous tours or check out the website to watch any portions of this that you missed. And thanks again, everyone. Have a great Thursday night.
Thank you.